Yo.
Malcolm, how does it feel to be fighting in Georgia over here?
What's up? What's up?
Excited to be fighting in front of your people?
Yeah, man. As you can imagine, almost everybody who ever came to see me fight regionally, before I got to the UFC, hit me up, and as soon as the fight happened, told me they got tickets. So, I'm super excited to go out there, fight in the hometown state, have a bunch of people, screaming for me, and just feel a personal connection to the crowd this time.
Yeah. Does that excite you or add more pressure or both?
I think it's a little bit of both. More so, definitely excitement. I mean, the pressure's always there. But as far as, how I think it'll affect me in the fight, I don't think it'll be too much different than last time.
Yeah. And what do you think about your opponent, Chris? He's been, he was in the UFC, came back, he fought Sean O'Malley. Like, overall, what do you make of him and sort of what he's shown in the cage?
I think it's a reputation he has for a reason for being tough. Everybody knows that he's going to walk forward. He's hard to put away, and he believes in himself. He lost twice when he came to the UFC, went back to the regional scene, rattled off a bunch of wins with a bunch of finishes. So I respect him, and I'm taking him very serious. But yeah, tough guy, and I expect him to walk forward and give me a good fight.
Yeah. Is it exciting knowing that like he goes in there to go to war, to strike, to exchange? Does that kind of excite you, the type of fight that you have in front of you?
Yeah, man, for sure. Out of all the names that came across the table, his was the one I got the most excited for because I just know it's a perfect canvas for me to go out there and put on the show.
Yeah. And just talk to me about just generally like your division. Like, where do you think you fit in? You're obviously undefeated, a prospect, not yet to be in the rankings, but like, where do you think your standing is, and how far are you from sort of those bigger matchups and maybe getting into the rankings and all that?
As of right now, I think I'm starting to get known in the division, especially with this matchup being made. A lot of people know who Chris Mutino are. So if they didn't know about me before, I'm sure they heard of me now. They might have seen some highlights, and it's going to be more eyes on me this weekend. So after I go out there and I do what I plan on doing, which is obviously, put on a show, get another finish, make more waves and highlights, I think that more exciting matchups will be in the near future for me, and it won't be long before I get a ranking and then eventually try to fight my way up to the belt.
Yeah. And your social media has been great, sort of like you getting into the UFC, and it's kind of like you've taken the entire fan base along for a ride. Why that approach? And it just feels like a very different approach, right? Like everyone tries to be like come off like very professional, very star, but like you show them behind the scenes, and you're very raw on your social media.
Yeah, man. I tried to use social media in different ways, and I just realized that, all these posts that I put so much effort into to try to make them professional and good lighting and microphones, most of the time nobody cares. But when I show like, me dancing with my Venom sweatsuit because I'm legitimately happy, it's almost like they can feel the sincerity behind it. So I just try to be me. I try to be real, and that's what the people care about, so I share it.
Yeah. So far, has anyone reached out that like has stood out like on social media, maybe like a celebrity or somebody that you're a fan of? Anyway.
Yeah, man. Ironically, before I fought Cameron, Joaquin Buckley actually reached out to me on social media because he saw the reel where I was working, and then I got the Adam Bramhall knockout. So before my fight, he knew who I was, and I met him in the lobby of the hotel in Kansas City, showed me so much love, and just was somebody that, I didn't expect to get recognition from so early. And so to be able to fight on his undercard it's an honor, man.
Yeah. Have you guys crossed paths this week?
Not this week, not yet. I'm going to see him soon, I'm sure.
Okay. And just real quick, what are your thoughts on the division? We saw O'Malley lose in the rematch against Merab. Merab, I mean, what a performance, right? One of the best championship performances out there. What are your thoughts on Merab? Do you think he's the GOAT? And who do you think is going to take that belt from him? Because it looks rough right now.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I didn't think Merab was going to come out and be a better version of himself, but he was. He was more aggressive and fiery than he was in the last fight. His ability to secure top position and do damage and find a finish was even better. I mean, the fact that he is still competing on higher and higher levels every time he goes in there is absolutely mind-blowing. So I think that if he's not already the GOAT, for sure he's in everybody's conversation of the GOAT for the bantamweight division. Tough luck for Sean O'Malley fighting somebody that's debatably the GOAT in the division to try to get his gold back. I still think he's great. And there's just so many fighters in the 135 division that are exciting, and so many of them have great striking styles, and I'm just excited to see where I fall into it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and good luck.
Thank you.
Malcolm Wellmaker, Julian Virgin.
What's going on?
Good to see you, man. You spent a lot of time in Atlanta, Georgia, fighting on a local scene. Could you talk about how those opportunities have prepared you to be right here and having an opportunity to fight in front of a hometown crowd?
Yeah, all the regional fights in Atlanta got me used to the traffic, that's for sure. But you know, it's special when you fight in the city, man. It's so busy. After the fight, it's always so much to do. The crowd is always so into it. You know probably that every time I fight in Atlanta, I try to walk out to something very personal for the Atlanta crowd. So this was no different, man. You know, every time I've ever fought in Atlanta, you know, for the NFC, I've had a great time. The city has showed me so much love. So it's going to be that same feeling, just on a huge scale this time.
And this is your first opportunity, man, just being a part of a press conference like this, man. You're hearing other people ask you about not just like, you know, your fight, but the division. How does it feel to be in this position?
You know, I said it my last fight that everything felt like a dream. You know, everything was surreal, meeting all the fighters, all the opportunities, the nutrition team giving me meals, all this stuff. And it's almost like I'm reliving that same thing where experience like having this press conference and people asking me my thoughts about guys that's in my division, you know, champions, you know. It's surreal, man, and it feels good to know that I am getting some respect and recognition on the highest level, because for a long time I felt like I could do it, and it just seems to actually be happening for me now.
Now, talking about that respect and recognition, how have things changed since your knockout in April?
Well, first of all, man, my social media presence has just skyrocketed, man. I've gotten over like 70,000 followers since my last fight, which is crazy. So many people like the fact that I quit my job, became a full-time athlete. That's been incredible. You know, so many different athletes and companies are reaching out to me, showing me their love and their support, and I'm a full-time athlete now. You know, that's the biggest difference in my life, my day-to-day schedule. You know, I wake up, I go train, I come home, I recover, and I give my best effort again another 1 or 2 times a day.
Just celebrated the birthday, just brought a new child into the world. How are you navigating life outside of the cage and also navigating your career inside of it?
Honestly, man, I'm navigating everything as I always have. You know, life is always unpredictable. So I had to develop the ability to make decisions on the fly, keep my cool, be somebody that people could look to in times of stress, and nothing's changed. You know, we had the baby, delivery was great. Baby's been chilling. He's back there right now relaxing. And being a full-time athlete, man, you know, I got the right people around me, my coaches, my teammates, everybody taking care of me. The Performance Institute is now part of my team. They're working with me, and just all the skill sets I developed in life and as an athlete before getting here, and having the right teammates and people in my corner make it easy for me to handle all this stuff.
Chris Moutinho was in here earlier. We spoke to him, and he acknowledged that you are a prospect, and he's also somebody who is coming in here with a job to do. Could you speak more to Chris and what you have to do in order to continue to push your career forward against him?
Well, first and foremost, huge respect to Chris. I mean, I know he took a fight on even shorter notice against Sean O'Malley, but, you know, him taking a fight 11 days notice with me after what I just did, and then especially after having been cut before, he know what risk was in front of him, and he had, you know, the heart to say yes. So huge respect to him, and I think that's just a reflection of the type of fighter he is, the type of person he is. You know, he's going to come in, and even though he respects me, he's not going to be afraid of me. He's going to walk forward, he's going to push the pace, he's going to try to get me tired, he's going to be willing to take my best shot and give more back. And I just have to be ready to do it. You know, from the very first bell to the very last bell, if I have to fight him for 15 minutes, a very hard fight, you know, I will do it. But I plan on hitting him with my best shot, putting him away, and if he can take it, I'll hit him with it again.
You said 11 days notice. Was there any point in time that you were concerned that you weren't going to get on this Atlanta card?
I was concerned every day. Every day that passed, we had a couple names come across and things just didn't work out. And it was already a quick turnaround. We was looking at, 6 weeks turnaround from Kansas City to Atlanta. So I knew it was going to be hard to get a matchup. And, every day that something didn't get locked in, my hope dwindled a little bit more. But my manager and his confidence in Sean Shelby never wavered. I mean, I asked him multiple times, like, well, do you think it's going to happen? He said, yes, I think Sean's going to get it done. So, I stayed in that mindset. I ate what I was supposed to. I trained how I was supposed to, and I was ready to fight.
Final question, man. Your placement on the card is, again, you're working your way. You're working your way. What's been the theme of this training camp as you prepare to fight State Farm Arena at UFC Fight Night?
The whole focus of this camp has been taking my training camp, taking my skill set and myself as an athlete to the next level. With access to so many new resources and so much more time, I've been getting so much more knowledge, so much more information, changing a couple different things, maybe dialing back a couple of my long distance runs and doing some targeted runs, really focusing on my grappling, my wrestling with private coaching sessions. This whole 6 weeks I've been focusing on evolving to be able to fight the best in the world, and it will show this weekend.
Real quick. Obviously, it's here in Atlanta. The UFC hasn't been here in a long time, so you're uniquely able to talk about what it's like fighting here in this city. What do you think it's going to look like on Saturday, and why do you think Atlanta is a spot that should be a place that the UFC continues to come back to?
Well, this weekend is gonna be electric. I don't know how typical it is for a prelim fight to have as much of a reaction as I'm gonna get, but I'm sure the ground is going to be shaking when I walk out, especially when y'all hear the song that I'm walking out to. Somebody might start fighting in the crowd. I mean, it's gonna be a good time. And there's talent in Georgia. So much as the crowd shows up, so much as the fighters from Georgia keep doing what they're supposed to be doing, I think that they'll visit Atlanta a little bit more frequently.
Do you have any message to maybe other kind of aspiring fighters who are kind of on the come up? They're grinding kind of like you did, side hustles, everything, working their way up. But what's the mindset you think they need to have and the message you would give them?
Man, when I look back at me trying to climb my way up to this level and, all the hardship that came with it, I mean, I took so many losses, even though only so many in the cage, just in life, so many people you have to deal with, losing along the way, so many opportunities you have to pass up, career opportunities, even vacations, just so many things. You have to be willing to take those losses, and you have to be willing to stay focused on what you're pursuing and know that it's worth it to you because, for everybody it's something different. So whatever it is you're pursuing, make sure that your heart's set on it, and all those losses that you take along the way will be worth it.
I think last question for me. Everybody probably does things differently when the fight is in your home state. Family, I'm sure that you have family coming out and stuff like that. Are you going to have them in the building or are you going to have them around? Like I know we talked to people earlier that said they don't want them anywhere close. How are you going to kind of adjust to having your whole friends and family, a lot of people be able to come see you fight on a big stage like this?
For me, when I fight, I have fun. I have a good time. I say it all the time, but whenever me and my team take a fight trip, it's literally like a vacation, man. We come out here, we stay in nice hotels, we having a good time, we eating different food, we seeing different people. So when I go compete, I'm out there having a good time too. So just having people that I love so personally be able to share that experience with me, I expect to go in there and have even more fun. I know the pressure is a real thing. I know it gets to a lot of people. But for me, man, when that cage door closes and they ring that bell, I got one thing on my mind, and that's go in there and perform. Thank you.
Malcolm.
What's up?
First of all, shout out to you for keeping that promise. I remember you told me.
I remember you asking.
Yeah. Shout out to you. When you walked in the office and you had on that white welding cap, what was that conversation like? Was your boss like, all right, I already know what's about to happen, like, we don't need to have this conversation? Or was he like, hey, man, thank you for coming and working for me every day, putting in the time? Like, how did that conversation go?
Yeah, it wasn't, I didn't really have to explain myself too much. I literally had on sweatpants and a hoodie. You know, everybody else is wearing their hard-toe boots and everything. And I sat down at the table. I stopped and grabbed biscuits on the way to work. And they knew, you know, everybody that was at my job was supporting me. They watched the fight. They knew what my aspirations were. And they knew what position I could be in if I got the bonus. So we literally sat at the table for about an hour. I mean, they stopped work. We had a good farewell. We talked about all the memories. We talked about what's next. And I rounded up my tools and went home. You know, it was a very positive experience.
And then I know they asked you earlier about like fighters and people like that reaching out to you, but as far as trades goes, like I know people that work in trades, they're like your brothers because you're with them. They say you're with the people that you work with in trades more than you are your own family sometimes, right? So have you had people from the trades kind of reach out to you as well in the DMs and be like, hey, bro, like inspiring story, like I work trades every day, I do what you do type thing?
Yeah, man. You know, I've worked with a lot of people that travel all over the country. So my DMs, my comments, YouTube and Instagram is people in California, Florida, you know, all over the world telling me, hey, I met this guy. And like, look, the guys who worked with me, they run around with a picture on their phone showing people like, hey, I know this guy, you know what I mean? So like so many people in the construction industry across the nation, across the world have known people I worked with personally, and all of them are absolutely inspired by what I'm doing, and I have their unconditional support.
And then as far as like the decision itself, I was reading some of the comments and some people were like, yo, I know you're betting on yourself, but like you also have a good job. Like maybe you should work both. Like what do you think when you saw things like that, when people are like, hey man, like it's a big risk, it's a big gamble, but you seem pretty confident like, hey, this is gonna pay off. Like don't worry about it.
Yeah, man. You know, I just talked about, you know, taking losses when I was pursuing this stage, and that's another loss I'm willing to take. If the money that I got, you know, falls out of my pocket, it doesn't last, I'm not getting these bonuses anymore, you know, I bet on myself. I pursued that greatness, and I'm happy and content with doing it. And then everybody else that's actually, you know, in the trade or in unions know my book's still paid up, and I could call the hall any day and ask them where the work's at. So, you know, hopefully I don't have to do that, but even if I did, you know, I'm very, very confident with the bet I'm placing on myself.
And then last one, as far as like activity-wise, you said just from the last fight alone, like your social media presence has gone and skyrocketed. We've seen guys in the past like Kevin Holland be super active in a year. Another guy, Joshua Van, taking a bunch of fights, just took another one against Brandon Royval. All of a sudden, everybody's they're talking about him, right? So are you looking to be that active as well and, you know, kind of develop a fan base like they had so quickly?
Yeah, 100%. I want to be as active as possible. You know, if I keep going into these fights, getting guys out of there early, not taking a lot of damage, I'm 100% willing to make, you know, 2-month, 3-month turnarounds, or even less, depending on the opportunity. So yeah, if it works out, if the cards are stacked the right way and the matchups make sense, I will be as active as possible.
Firstly, Malcolm, thanks for coming. And second, you know, you've had kind of a whirlwind start to your UFC career, but they did give you a pretty tough opponent in Cameron Simon your first time out. How does it feel to know that the UFC and the MMA community at large thinks so highly of you by putting you in these sorts of situations?
Yeah, I'm so glad that I got a test like Cameron Simon and was able to do what I did, because I think that's what set up, you know, the respect for my skill set. You know, if I'd have went out there and not had an opponent that was as tough and it was expected for me to do that to him, I don't think that my career and the hype behind me would be the same, but because of him, it set everything up perfectly. So I'm super happy that I got the opportunity to fight somebody as respected as Cameron Simon in my debut. And with somebody like Chris Mutino in front of me, man, I think it's just a matchup that's a banger set up for people, and something that, you know, they had to make a fight happen, so they pulled the ace out the sleeve and said, Chris will take it.
Yeah, like you said in the lead up, were you just willing to say yes to anybody to make it happen, like trying to do anything possible to make it work?
Yeah, man. Unfortunately, I got that hard-headed fighter mentality. You know, my coaches know if a fighter's name comes to me, I'm going to say yes. So with that being said, every name that came to me, I said yes to. And like I said, things just didn't work out. Some of them, it was just too quick of a turnaround. Some of them actually accepted and then got injured. So like I said, Chris was the guy. You know, you need him to take a fight on short notice against a killer, he'll do it.
So last question. Can I take a guess as to what your walkout song would be, or are you saving it as a surprise?
Yeah, you can take a guess.
Is it Crime Mob?
That's a good one, but no. That is a real good one, but no. Hey, salute to you, bro.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.